Hey everybody, for those who have not seen it yet, the Georgia runoffs happened yesterday. With all of the votes in, we have yet another Georgia runoff win for Democrats, with Raphael Warnock taking out Herschel Walker from the race. The results came in with Warnock with 51.4% of the vote to Walker's 48.6% of the vote, with 99% reporting. Important to look at the vote totals here. 1.8 million roughly for Warnock to 1.7 million for Walker, roughly a just over 100,000 vote lead for Warnock in this race. Not surprisingly, turnout was lower in these runoff elections. Something of note, if Walker's folks who actually showed up and voted for him during the general election, during the midterms, actually all came out and voted, he would have had more votes than Warnock ended up with here. Now, you could say the same thing that if all of Warnock's voters showed up as well, he still then would have edged out Walker. But important to note that in these sorts of runoff elections, every vote does really matter. So if there are local runoffs happening across the country still near you, obviously Georgia's already happened, but here in Texas where I live, there are a ton of local races that are in runoffs, and early voting is happening right now. So if that is the case in your state, definitely go out there and vote, because way less people go out and vote during the runoffs. And in this case, it could have gone a different way if Republicans did a better job of getting their vote out than Democrats did. Ultimately, that is not what happened in this case, again, with Warnock winning the Senate seat yet again in the state of Georgia. Now, with this win, it brings Democrats to 51 votes in the Senate to Republicans 49. It hypothetically means that Kamala Harris no longer needs to be tie-breaking vote in so many instances as she is right now, with the 50-50 split that is currently in the Senate, as we're still in this lame duck session. Do I think that this is going to change much as far as how Democrats will legislate here going through this time period between 2022 and 2024? Ultimately, no. I mean, the only thing that it could do is like, okay, you know, now we don't need Joe Manchin's vote, or we don't need Sinema's vote. But the issue is Democrats did still lose the House of Representatives, so any bill that is going to pass in the next 2 years, which I'm not really convinced that there are going to be many, is already not going to be like some sort of progressive bill, right? Not that Democrats are actually pushing through very many progressive bills these days, but it's not like we're going to see something that the Democrats will put up for a vote that actually will make it through the House of Representatives. That's going to be considered like a more lefty bill that someone like a Joe Manchin or a Kyrsten Sinema wouldn't vote for. So this extra vote in the next 2 years doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot, to be honest, but looking forward to 2024 elections, including Senate elections, and even ahead further to 2026, this will kind of make a difference as far as all of the seats that Democrats and Republicans are going to be jockeying over in those elections, which we'll talk about later on in this video. But first, I wanted to play a couple reactions from folks on Fox News last night and actually get their take about what they think happened and why Walker actually lost this race. First, though, just a little bit of election conspiracy theories being thrown out by Laura Ingraham as the results were coming in. Colin, you can go ahead and play this first clip.
But why is it that the heavily Democratic counties are always the last ones to report? I mean, presumably they count, and there are numbers, and they count. There are more people, obviously, but it seems like it kind of, I hate to say this is just a familiar refrain, but it's a very familiar refrain to us from election night past to just the midterms, et cetera.
Well, I'm going to say that that's where you find the people. That's where they live. And Laura, right now, we're relying on the Associated Press to give us these numbers. And right now, the Associated Press has just given the check mark to Raphael Warnock. He's going back to the U.S. Senate as the winner of this runoff against Herschel Walker, right now at 50.4% to Walker's 49.6%. Raphael Warnock has won the runoff in Georgia 4 weeks after.
She's clearly making, I believe it's Bill Hemmer is his name. This is from my, I grew up in a household where a lot of Fox News is being watched. So whenever I'm home for the holidays, I still get my my dosage of Fox News in, and occasionally Newsmax these days, which scares me a little bit. But anyway, I mean, they were counting the votes all that night. I mean, it's this morning when I'm recording this, and this morning when I first looked at the results, it was 99% in right away. As it should be. I mean, I understand people being concerned about why is it taking so long to count votes. I don't think that there's anything malicious going on, but we should be able to, it's 2022, United States of America, we should be able to count the votes in a timely manner. So Georgia did a great job here. It's the morning after the election, 99% in. It's, potentially 100% in, or they're waiting on one small thing here or there. But the fact that Laura Ingraham just goes out and is like, immediately calling into question, and answering her own question, like, why does it seem to take longer in these Democrat areas? Well, Laura, it's probably because the Democrat areas are where all of the people live. When you have more votes to count, it takes more time. She continues ahead here and actually kind of goes into why she and some of the panel think this race went the way that it did, and kind of implications for Republicans, and I thought it was fairly interesting. So, Colin, we can go ahead and play that next clip.
You and I talked about this about a week ago. We felt this coming. To me, it never felt like the Senate Republicans wanted this guy in office. He was a Trump pick. They didn't like that. They probably like him as a person, Herschel as a person. But there wasn't the intensity on the part of the Republicans as there was on the part of the Democrats. I felt it. You felt it. But we don't change anything. We have the same people in place in leadership, same people in place apparently at the RNC. Perhaps that's not changing. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I'm pissed tonight, frankly. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really offensive.
I'm mad.
For Republican voters, for Republican donors who have put so much into having some wins, and they just see kind of failure across the board. There aren't people who are working on early voting or banking ballots. There's no clear messaging. I mean, you look at what happened since the midterm elections, where you had a Senate that basically responded to those disappointing midterm losses by doing nothing other than sabotaging their own base. What is the case for voting Republican for the Senate after these midterms? I don't think one was even attempted to be made.
A couple things to note here. Interesting that she mentions early voting and how getting folks out to go early vote and do mail-in ballots is a miss from the Republicans. I wonder, let's think back here to 2024. Why would Republican voters not be doing early voting and mail-in voting? Maybe because the presidential candidate and then president at the time, Trump, basically told all of his people that it was a joke and that they shouldn't go do it. And then when the votes start coming in states like Pennsylvania during the 2020 election, start coming in later because mail-in votes are counted later, then he calls fraud on it. When in reality, the reason there are more Democrat votes coming in by mail later is because he told his entire base of supporters not to do it because it was fraud and bad and not legitimate. I wonder why Republicans still are voting early less and doing mail-in voting less. So, I mean, clearly at least some Republican strategist type folks, or whatever you want to call them, are seeing some of their misses here and saying that they're upset with the Republican leadership. Now, Laura Ingraham is definitely more on the Trump side of things here, saying, Herschel Walker's a Trump pick. They didn't want him there. I mean, Trump was not even in Georgia very much during these runoff elections. He certainly could have been making more of an appearance, although I don't think it would have helped. But I get it. I mean, Herschel Walker was not a good candidate here. I mean, what other Senate candidate do you see doing interviews with two other senators next to him so that they can essentially vouch for him? There's a ton of, Colin, you can pull up a picture of, Herschel Walker sitting there with Ted Cruz on one side of him and Lindsey Graham on the other. And they're sitting there and like taking a press conference together, essentially so that Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham, who are well media trained and know how to pivot their answers and everything, can bail out Herschel from saying something stupid. People notice that sort of stuff. People also notice the hypocrisy and the scandals surrounding Herschel Walker being pro-life, and meanwhile having multiple accusations, some of them well proven at this point, that he's paying for women to have abortions. People see this sort of stuff. The other thing that is noted here is the lack of strategy from the GOP and the lack of a plan. What are they running on at this point? Exclusively like culture war BS? Because Republicans love to complain about inflation, and I generally don't hear a solid plan on inflation from them other than cut spending, which cutting spending on its own is not going to just stop inflation from happening tomorrow like that. They complain a lot about the border, and I don't hear any actual real immigration solutions coming from them. It's thing after thing after thing with them that they are complaining about and then not putting forward an actual plan as to how to do it. Their plan is stop Joe Biden, stop Joe Biden, stop Joe Biden. Just like, the Democrats' plan for a long time was stop Trump, and a lot of them still to now is stop Trump, stop Trump, stop Trump. And that's not a plan. Give people a vision, give people something to vote for, and that's how you will do better in your elections moving forward. Now, looking ahead to 2024, Democrats are going to be defending a ton of seats in purple and red states, which are going to be tricky to navigate. So winning this one does help them a little bit, but man, is it going to be a tough battle ahead. Colin, you can go ahead and pull up the tweet with the map here. I'm going to read this tweet from Jack Craver, who is a journalist actually in this area where I live in Austin, Texas. The Warnock win matters less for the next 2 years than it does for the next 6. 2024 is going to be a brutal map for Democrats. They are defending 3 seats in red states, those red states being Montana, Ohio, and West Virginia, as well as 6 seats in purple states. Those are Arizona, Nevada, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. In those seats there, those red seats are folks like Joe Manchin in West Virginia, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, where we just saw in Ohio J.D. Vance beating Tim Ryan by a handy margin. Can Republicans repeat their performance there in Ohio, as well as John Tester in Montana? If Democrats lose those seats, there go 3 seats, so you're at 51 right now, 50, 49, 48. And then we've got those 6 purple seats as well. Let me pull up those states here again. Those are going to be Arizona, Nevada, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Democrats really need to perform well in these places to make it happen, and it's certainly going to be an uphill battle. Let's say, just to give you some scenarios, you lose those 3 seats in red states. If Republicans actually get their messaging on point and appeal to voters in those places, and then you win half of the purple states, you're looking at a 55-45 Senate. Now, I'm not saying that scenario could happen. Obviously, Democrats could win those seats. But if Democrats win all of those seats that they're defending, they're still at 51-49. That's a tough uphill battle. They need to win all of those, or most of those, if they want any chance, looking even further ahead to 2026, to actually pick up some seats and pick up some gains that they have a real shot at. Ultimately, this is kind of a guessing game looking this far ahead, but these races are going to be difficult moving forward. This one pickup in Georgia, not going to make much of a difference for us here in this session between 2022 and 2024, but it certainly could make a difference further down the line as you start to look at these Senate races years and years ahead. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. We're going to be continuing to cover all sorts of stories going on. We're not probably going to talk much about the Georgia runoff anymore unless something interesting breaks on it, but this is basically a done deal. Stay tuned. We might be covering more on the Moore County power outages that happened. Still not many answers there that I covered the other day. Be sure to tune into the live stream this evening. Be subscribed. You can give me a follow on Twitter as well, at LewisD217. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good day.